My name is Orly Ben Rashlight. I was born in Israel. My parents are from Morocco. My father served in the Israeli Defense Forces during the Suez War and the Six-Day War. The Six-Day War left my dad scarred, and he struggled with the horrors he witnessed. He packed up our life in Israel and moved us to Montreal, Canada, and vowed that his kids will never witness the same pain of violence, war, and suffering. My work today with Women's Peace Building Initiative is building on his legacy. I'm joined today by Robi Damelin and Layla Alsheikh from the organization Parent Circle Families Forum. This is a joint Israeli-Palestinian organization of over 600 families, all of whom have lost an immediate family member to the ongoing conflict. This is an organization no parent wants to be a member of. In 2002, Robi's son, David, was in the reserves with the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, when he was killed by a Palestinian sniper while guarding a checkpoint near a settlement. He was only 28 years old. The same year, Layla's 6-month-old son, Kusai, became ill. To get to the hospital, she had to get through the Israelis' designed checkpoints where Palestinians have to show an ID card and answer questions. The Israeli soldiers' ongoing demands and restrictions that day prevented Layla from taking her son to the hospital for more than 5 hours. Kusai soon died from lack of the timely treatment that he needed. Welcome, Robi and Layla. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today at our National Congress for Women's International League of Peace and Freedom. We look forward to learning from each other since we have a similar vision about compassionate leadership for unity, humanity, and peace. Robi and Layla, please take us back to the time when both your sons were alive. Robi, your 2 sons served in the Israeli Armed Forces. Beautiful sons, gorgeous. I saw their picture, actor-like sons, which is, the Israeli Armed Forces is mandatory in Israel. At that time, where did you stand on the Palestinian issues and peace?
Oh, this didn't start then. I mean, I originally came from South Africa, so this was very much ingrained in who I am. And I worked for, I don't want to call it peace. I worked to end the apartheid days in South Africa. And from a very young child, I understood the injustices that there were. So when my kids were called to go to the army, it wasn't as if I suddenly became somebody else. I was the same person. And it was extremely painful for me to watch Iran, my oldest son, drive off in the bus and thinking that my child of all children would have to carry a gun. So I think that that's the answer to that.
Layla, you moved with your husband from Jordan to Bethlehem. It seems like it was a happy time for you. You had your daughter and then your son, Kusai. At that time, where did you stand on Israeli issues and peace?
For me, it was like a dream come true to come back to Bethlehem and stay there because originally my parents from Bethlehem and my father was a teacher. He went to Bethlehem to be a teacher for the refugees in the camps. And he always speak about Bethlehem and Palestine and how much it's beautiful. And he tried to talk a lot, and it was like a dream for me to come back and live here. And the first year was amazing. Everything was new, and it was more than I was imagining, and I was really so happy until that day that when my son was died, everything was changed completely.
Layla has said that it took her 16 years of mourning and anger towards the Israelis before she allowed herself to have some empathy for bereaved Israeli parents after the Parent Circle Families Forum reached out to her. Robi, when you were told that David was killed, it must have felt like your heart was being pulled out of your chest. Yet you said, please don't kill anybody in the name of my child. Most mothers would react like Layla, with anger, demanding justice, and that everyone be held accountable for everything that was taken from them. It takes incredible inner strength to utter such words. Where did you cultivate that?
Well, it's actually, I didn't even know that I said that. I was told that a while after David was killed. And the other day I found something on Facebook from a journalist who interviewed me on the morning after David was killed. And she wrote that she'd been to all these houses because it was in a very difficult time when many people were killed during the uprising. And she was so shocked when she came to my house, because that's what I said also, again, apparently, and I appealed to the then Prime Minister, Arik Sharon, and said to stop all this killing. So I suppose it was somewhere in me, and it was very prophetic of what I would do later on with my life. It wasn't something that is actually foreign to who I am. And I knew very soon after David was killed, firstly, I knew that I wanted to do something to prevent many mothers from experiencing this pain. But also, it was very clear to me that I would do something, but I didn't know what. And that's when I was approached by Yitzhak Frankenthal, who started the Parents Circle. And I really didn't think it was a good idea for me to do this work and to do what I wanted to do to stop the violence by working with other bereaved parents. But I was so wrong, because those were the parents and those were the families that actually understood more than any other exactly what I was going through and what this pain is all about. And what do you do with it? And going to a seminar and looking into the eyes of the Palestinian mothers and sitting around a table and thinking to myself, well, the pain is the same pain. And whatever tears we may drop on our pillow or down a grave, it's the same color. So wouldn't this be the most extraordinary opportunity to be an example if I could stand on the stage with Layla or with any other Palestinian who was talking in the same voice? Wouldn't that be an example to others? Because, in fact, we are the least likely to be doing this kind of work.
Layla, many people involved in peace-building initiative experience criticism by family, friends, and the community. I've been called anti-Zionist, traitor, and other words I don't even want to mention because it's so painful. Yet I love my country and I don't want to see any more bloodshed. And that's the reason that I work so hard towards peace. What gives you the courage to face these challenges, and how do you react to such negative feedback?
One of the things that, as Robi said, when you sit with an Israeli parents, or it's not just about parents, even anyone who lost his beloved ones, it's so hard to hear their stories. And when they start to talk about their stories, you start to feel that there's the only people who will understand you, even if you didn't say a word, even if just you look to their eyes, you could understand the pain, the word that even they couldn't even say. And what I've learned inside the birth circle and the transformation that happens to me during this 40 years, and how much the change that happened into my life, that's what gave me the power to continue always. And the most important thing that I want to really, not just to protect my other children, even other families. I don't want them to be part of this cycle of violence, because lose a son, it's one of the most hardest thing that I will never think that I want to hear that anyone lost his beloved ones because of this conflict. And I always asked myself, why all this happened? Why all this bloodshed happened? All these years, all those people who lost their lives, for what? We deserve this life, and God gave us this life to live and to do everything that we want, not just to lose it because of I don't know how to say it, but there's something much more important than to be part of this cycle of violence. And this is one of the things that in the beginning helped me not to take revenge, because I wasn't thinking that revenge will bring anything to my life. It will bring the worst to my life. And I want to end this, even if I stay for 16 years, didn't do anything to improve my life or to do something else, because maybe I wasn't or I didn't find the way to change. And finally, when I have the prayer circle, it was the amazing opportunity for me to change myself from inside, because you can't go and talk to people about peace and reconciliation if you didn't feel it from your inside.
Nelson Mandela once said, as I walked out the door towards the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. At WILPF, we see patriarchy and militarism as the interrelated causes that push us all towards more conflict. We believe that when those structures have been changed and patriarchy ends, then we can have real equality and the possibility of sustainable peace. The Parent Circle Families Forum Women's Group was born out of a need to express and bring forth the voice of the women in your organization. It aims to equip women from both sides of the conflict to acquire an authoritative voice and a real say in the future reconciliation process. Robi, what is the Parent Circle Families Forum Women's Group doing to change those structures?
You know, there's something about changing yourself before you start to change everybody else. You know, do I affect the situation, or does the situation affect who I am? And I can just give you a short example because it happened on last Friday. We had, after this whole long period of time of Corona and the war, it was an opportunity for us to meet in person. Of course, we had been meeting many, many times online, which in some way was for the Palestinians a lot more dignified, because they certainly didn't have to ask permission from the powers that be to get a permit to come into our homes. But this was extraordinary. Of course, if I haven't got Corona by now, I think I will never have it, because the minute we arrived, everybody was madly hugging and kissing and carrying on, and nobody wore masks. And I mean, we are all vaccinated, but, you know, it was insane. But something that was very, very important for us was to recognize that we are human beings all the same. And so we did this, it was a process where we started off with totally white masks, not Corona masks, white masks over the whole face, so that actually you didn't know who the person was behind the mask. It was to show that we are all actually the same. And then we had a kind of intermingling of all the people with masks, and all you could see were the eyes through the mask, but you had no idea who that person was. And then we took off the masks and everybody decorated their mask. And of course, there was such a dual narrative after the war. Everybody watching their own media, that is the Palestinian media and the Israeli media, you would have there's no narrative that you could see the same. And you could see some of the masks, it was very indicative of the characters, and people's humor came out in that. And of course, I made this crazy hippie mask with big earrings and feathers and, exaggerated who I am really, because that's actually who I am inside, this worn out hippie.
From the inside out. Everything is from the inside out, right?
And we saw people who were still angry, whose decorations were tough, but also the humor of so many people. It was an instant for making that breakthrough from this anger that you carry from all the death. Because can you imagine what it's going to be like for children now to grow up in Gaza after all of these wars? What hatred are they going to grow up with? And what about the children who live in Ashdod, Ashkelon, and Sderot, which is on the corners, the towns bordering Gaza? What kind of people are they going to be when they grow up? And these are things that we've got to deal with. And so, you asked me how so soon I could say about that you can't kill anybody in the name of my child. But I also realized very soon that this man killed David's uniform. He didn't kill David. If he had known him, he could never have killed him. David was in the occupied territories in a uniform. This is hard for an Israeli mother to say, but that is the truth. And if you want to go on a road of reconciliation, and I don't talk about forgiving because forgiving is a very personal thing. And I can give you the latest news. I wrote a letter to the sniper, which I sent to his family. And I was waiting to meet him. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into the whole story. But what happened is now we have a new government. You may have recognized that we have rather a lot of elections in this country. And there is a new minister of police who is more left-leaning. And so I wrote him a letter last week and through another member of parliament, and I'm waiting to see, and maybe I'll be allowed into the jail now to meet the man who killed David. And that would be for me a kind of a completion. So there is, I've been waiting to do this for years, but I was never allowed to get into the jail. And now I just hope this is going to happen because it will close a chapter that I need to close.
I hope so too for you. I hope so too. Layla, both sides say we want peace, but they don't. Both sides have a stockpile of ammunition to prove how bad the other side is, how evil their intentions, and how impossible it is to make peace with them. What kind of peace agreement do you wish to see for your kids' future and for the Palestinian people?
What I wish that we live side by side with our Israeli partners and our Israeli friends without any checkpoint, without any borders between us, to live in one state as any normal people without, I don't really think about a specific agreement, but the only thing that we think about just to live a normal life like any other people without occupation, without borders, without seeing the soldiers came to my house in the middle of the night and they searched the house and kicked us out. And at the end, they said, "We are sorry. We came to the wrong house." And that's make my children so afraid and they couldn't sleep the whole night. This is what I want not to see in the future.
Thank you. Robi, why is it essential for women to be involved in the peace-building process and reconciliation and peace-building process? Why?
It's a different energy. It's a different education. It's a different way. Look what happened with Corona. Which are the countries that have managed the Corona? Women leaders. New Zealand, Iceland, places like that. But what was very interesting about the latest women's meeting, it wasn't just this question of the masks. That was the way to start the day. But more than 20 women from both sides have been going through a process of learning about what is reconciliation and becoming leaders. And they presented programs and or processes or ideas, projects that they want to do in the next year or so. And it was so interesting to see this whole variety of one Israeli woman saying she wants to reach out to Orthodox Jewish women who've never been exposed to our message and talk to them and try to then bring in the Palestinian women. Another group wanting to create an atmosphere where we can join all the other women's groups together to make a mass of women who would come to the table, because we've been very much ignored up to now. Another one that came up with an idea to have a photo exhibition of kind of from pain to hope. And that's a wonderful way to express your feelings, is to take pictures, and talk about it. We had these exhibitions before. So all of these ideas are going around, and these women have taken leadership of these projects. And that's amazing. When you think about it, the average Palestinian lady in our group may never have had the formal education opportunities that I've had. But boy, could they wisely come up with something. And listening to this made me feel very proud to be a catalyst in this whole organization to make for change and to watch transformation in women that you would never have believed, who'd been speaking about, if I meet the person who killed my son, I would kill him after 100 years. But today they are in one of these projects, to bring all the women to the table. So this is a very important part of the parent circle, because it was very male dominated when I came along. And of course, that wasn't going to be what I would accept, because obviously not. And today I would think that the women's group has a very prominent, if not, well, maybe I shouldn't boast, but I think the most dominant role for doing new things in the parent circle. And that's wonderful. Of course, it's not all lovey-dovey agreement, but if they can handle the difficulties that come up with honesty. And, I started to tell you about this wonderful woman who died, who I really loved because she was a tough cookie. And a Palestinian lady. Today I went to her family and they are so broken because she was this character that kept the whole family together, that spent 5 years in jail, that came out of jail angry, as you can well imagine, and lost 2 brothers. And I remember she came, one of our projects is this parallel narrative. I remember she came to the Holocaust Museum and she walked out, and having been very angry for a long time, she put her hand on the shoulder of the facilitator, one of the Israeli facilitators, and she said, "Well, now I understand." And she was so honest, and she had a women's group in her village that she supported by selling us all this embroidery. If you come to my house one day, it's loaded with all kinds of embroidery that I really don't need, but that I'm so happy, to have been a part of what Ahmad, that was her name, did. And so I'm very full of that today when you're asking me, because she was a woman leader, and she was a leader from the Fatah party, but she had the belief of the Chazit Amamit, that's another party, and of the Hamas. And she used to be the peacemaker between them because they really trusted her. Is that not an extraordinary, she was left behind as a baby.
Amazing.
These are stories. Everybody in 1948, when the family fled, she was left behind by mistake. And then after a day, the brother suddenly realized that the baby wasn't there and he went back to fetch her. All of these stories are precious. Now, I'm telling you one woman, but everybody in the parent circle, I can give you 600 families with the most extraordinary stories which have to be recorded We need to make testimonials so that people will understand that it's possible to change.
May she rest in peace, and what an incredible legacy she left behind. Incredible.
Absolutely.
You know, and all evidence indicates that women participants in peace process are usually focused less on the spoils of the war and more on reconciliation, economic development, education, transitional justice, all critical elements of a sustained peace. Absolutely, I totally agree. Everyone has a role to play in ending violence in our community, but peace, like justice, begins at home. It is each family's member's value and responsibility to teach our children non-violent ways to look at problems and to solve them. Thank you, Layla and Robi. Keep up the amazing work you are all doing for the Parents Family, for the Parents Circle Families Forum. God bless, and we hope to meet again soon. Thank you so much.